Kamal, this was John Holmes. He's the head of humanitarian affairs here at the United Nations. He flew in for the conference from Geneva, where he was when the disaster struck, leaving the early stages of its management to his executive team. The first thing he did was confirm the numbers coming out of Myanmar, or at least to say the UN is working and assuming that those numbers are correct. 22,000 dead for now, 41,000 people missing, maybe 1 million people homeless. He said that the United Nations staff on the ground in Myanmar are doing what they can to distribute what aid they have, particularly in the Irrawaddy Delta where it's most needed. He confirmed an aid flight backed by the World Food Programme will leave Italy tomorrow to arrive on Thursday in Myanmar, and confirmed that there's $10 billion earmarked for immediate use by the Myanmar government by the Central Emergency Relief Fund here at the United Nations. As far as the visas were concerned and getting more bodies on the ground to help, he said that he thinks they're making progress, he hopes they're making progress, and he thinks things are going in the right direction, all fairly vague. So I asked him whether he thought it was time for the United Nations to look closely at its revised charter. It was revised in 2005, and it allows for the UN to go into a country, irregardless of whether it's been invited or not, if it thinks people there are starving. But John Holmes was having none of that.
Well, I'm not sure that invading Myanmar will be a very sensible option at this particular moment. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it would be helpful to the people we're actually trying to help to get into that confrontational mode. We are trying to work with the government, as we always do, and it's always difficult in these circumstances. This is not the only country in which we have difficulties of this nature. If there had been a blanket refusal to accept international assistance or a blanket refusal to accept international aid workers, then that might have been a different matter. But that's not the position we're in. I think, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I think we are moving in the right direction. That's the most important thing, getting that aid in quickly.
So the cyclone was on Saturday. This building was closed until 10 o'clock on Monday morning. You lot had a ceremony with Ban Ki-moon in a blue hard hat before you addressed the issue of, at that point, 10,000 dead and potentially 1 million people without a home.
Well, it doesn't mean we weren't addressing it. Those on the ground were addressing it as soon as the cyclone happened, and we were in touch with them very closely. And we were assessing the scale of the disaster, which is only gradually becoming clear, and it's still only becoming clear. That's one of the things that's most worrying about it. So I think the implication that we were doing nothing in the meantime is certainly unfair. Our reaction has been reasonable in the circumstances. We need to do better. We obviously understand that. And the important thing is whether we get aid to people who are suffering on the ground.
So, John, in light of what we've heard John Holmes say there at that media conference, in the last 5 days, what has the UN actually been able to achieve?
Well, I hate to say it, but I think really very little. Yes, there's a World Food Programme flight, maybe 3 aircraft taking off from Italy, heading into Myanmar tomorrow. And we know that 4 out of 5 of the assessment and coordination team who've been waiting in Bangkok since Saturday to go in, 4 out of 5 are due to go into Myanmar tomorrow. The reason for that, by the way, is because those 4 don't need visas. They are Asians, and they needed permission, which they've now got, but they don't need visas. So no new visas, we think, have been issued since Saturday. I believe some visas have been issued, but they were actually put into the system many months ago, but nothing that would be kind of new to get people in, to get the emergency relief operation underway. Also, we learn as a result of the press conference that there may be an issue of discrimination about which nationalities can actually go into Myanmar. And if and when aid workers get in, they will be escorted, which is actually the custom in the country, apparently, and any aid may well end up being distributed by the army. And one bit of late-breaking news. In the past few minutes, the Security Council, a row has broken out there. The French are very unhappy. They wanted John Holmes to come and brief them in the way that he just briefed us, and other members on the council turned that down. And the French are now pushing for an emergency session on Myanmar in the Security Council tomorrow, Thursday, here in New York.
That's John Terrett live at the UN in New York. John, thank you very much indeed. So as we heard from John, well, both Johns actually, John Terrett and John Holmes, there is frustration at the way the Myanmar government is handling this disaster. The junta has been either unable or unwilling to act quickly, which is an extraordinary situation, really, when 1 million of its people are homeless and at least 22,000 of them have already died. Has the situation been made worse by the country's military rulers, and have they failed to protect their people? Here are some more numbers for you to consider. 2 days. That's how much warning the Myanmar government got that this powerful cyclone was going to hit, yet the military rulers failed to give adequate warnings. 4 days. That's how long ago the cyclone hit, but even now the government is not providing visas for foreign aid workers. 500,000 troops, that's the total size of the Myanmar military, but it's still not clear how many of these have been sent to help with the crucial rescue effort. and $3 million. That's how much money the US has promised in aid, and they've got planes and ships on standby to help. Of course, they're not the only country pledging money and equipment, but it's 24 hours since the offer was made, and the junta are yet to give the US an answer.
On an expanse of flattened virgin jungle in the middle of Myanmar is this country's brand new seat of power, Naypyidaw. And behind the walls of the newly built ministries and apartments, Myanmar's generals administer a nation they've ruled with an iron fist since 1962. The government is now finishing off a move here from Yangon. But no one really knows why the generals relocated. They're known for their paranoia, possibly heightened after the US invasion of Iraq. That mindset could provoke a negative reaction to Washington's insistence that a State Department assessment team be allowed into Myanmar before extra cyclone relief aid is granted.
It's troubling that many of the Burmese people learned of this impending disaster only when foreign outlets such as Radio Free Asia and Voice of America sounded the alarm. Although they were aware of the threat, Burma's state-run media failed to issue a timely warning to citizens in the storm's path.
General Tan Shui heads the junta. Sanctions imposed by Western powers on trade and investment have had little effect on his grip on power. The country's only democratically elected leader has been under house arrest for much of the past 20 years. Aung San Suu Kyi won a landslide victory in elections in 1990, but the generals ignored the result. A tantalising glimpse into the world of privilege enjoyed by Myanmar's elite emerged 2 years ago. A leaked video of the wedding of Tan Shui's daughter shows the bride dripping with diamonds at a lavish wedding reception. It's a far cry from the poverty endured by the majority of people in Myanmar. When fuel prices suddenly increased it was the last straw for many. Led by Buddhist monks, thousands poured onto the streets in protest. Almost inevitably, the government brutally suppressed the demonstrators. Indeed, as some in Yangon have complained in recent days, the generals were a lot more effective at quashing dissent than they have been at reacting to the cyclone. Bernard Smith, Aljazeera.
And just one final note on Myanmar this news hour, another number for you to consider when thinking about just how devastating this natural disaster has been. This video wall is around 2.5 metres high, that's 8 foot in old speak. Excuse me, the tidal surge which put much of the Irrawaddy Delta underwater was 3.6 metres high, or 12 foot. That is way out of our camera shot. So it's no great shock then that, as we mentioned, US diplomats inside Myanmar say 100,000 people died in the Delta. What's perhaps truly remarkable is that there were any survivors at all.